Uh, Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're very excited. We're just waiting for a couple of minutes to just get started, let everyone join in, and then we will begin shortly. In the meantime, I would just request all of you, if you could just please keep your cameras on. It would just help us engage better with you and just creates a spirit during the session. So if you're willing to turn on your cameras, just please be on camera. It would be easy for us to host. But yeah, I can already see some people obliging to turn on the cameras. Very happy to see all of you here. Yeah. ये एक बड़ा help. Also, if you guys can be on mute for a better experience, that would be great. If you have any, we do want to address all the questions and do want to give you some time to engage with the speakers. So we'll just move towards the end of the session and take some time where you guys can maybe have a chat with Mihika. But yeah. Thank you, everyone, whoever is on camera. Great to see all of you here.
Great. Should we get started?
Yes, we can get started. I'll just present my screen. Can you confirm if you're able to see my screen?
Yeah, we can see.
Amazing. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the session today on how to create an effective giving campaign. I'm Harpreet. I work as the Founders Associate at We Do Good. We have our other team members also from our team. It's great to see all of you here, and we're very excited. Before we dive into the session, I just wanted to take a minute to introduce We Do Good. We see a lot of new faces here today, so just want to introduce We Do Good and set the context right. So at We Do Good, we're all about connecting skilled professionals with nonprofits and social enterprises to make a real-time impact through volunteering. In the past year and a half, we've partnered with over 55 NGOs and social enterprises with a project completion rate of around 95%. Now, that's something we're really proud of because volunteering, usually you don't see a lot of project success rate, and volunteers may tend to drop out. But our project success rate is about 95% and above. And also, it's because of the volunteers who decide to invest their time and expertise with us. We've had over 110 projects, and we've engaged more than 300 skilled volunteers. One way to explain We Do Good is that, before that, just want to give you a quick sense of our numbers. Like I said, we've engaged 315 NGOs and we've completed 120 projects. And we've also saved huge costs of the NGOs. But yeah, so one way to explain We Do Good is that we offer a business class experience at the price of an economy. So think of it as like getting a top-notch consulting service for the fraction of the cost, right? Think of MBBs or the big consulting firms who charge a fortune. But here you're getting the same experience, getting in touch with the same kind of corporate professionals who've decided to volunteer with us, and getting their expertise and their recommendations and guidance through skilled volunteering. And we basically act as the matchmakers, as an intermediary. So that's pretty much about We Do Good. Also wanted to give a quick, rundown as to why we want to celebrate this giving moments. We're very close to the idea of the entire concept of giving moments, and we want to make sure that our NGO community and everyone in the social sector comes together, and we want to enable the nonprofits. So that's why, we feel like this is our way of giving back. And that's why we're actively partnering with a lot of organizations and finding our own ways to giving back. And that's why we really resonate with the whole idea. And today we've partnered with Giving Tuesday, and we're very excited. We have Mihika from the organization who's representing Giving Tuesday, and we've been working on this for a while, and we've curated a well-planned session so that everyone can get some value out of it. So just wanted to, introduce Mihika. And Mihika is a partnerships consultant at Giving Tuesday, and she's done quite a lot of work with the whole Giving Tuesday movement. And she's also passionate about facilitating spaces for organizations to mobilize resources and build movements. She's worked in various roles across her sector, and she's done a couple of things in crowdfunding, gender, and equity. So I just wanted to extend our heartfelt thanks from the entire We Do Good team to Mihika for joining us and taking out the time today. But yeah, without any further ado, I think we can dive right into the session, and we're very excited about the insights that Mihika is going to share today. Towards the end of the sessions, we'll take more questions, but yeah, over to you, Mihika.
Thank you so much, Harpreet. Thank you for setting up the context, and I especially love what you said about why you're promoting giving moments, and that's exactly what we're here to talk about. Thank you, everyone, for making the time. I'm just going to share my screen and let me know when you can see it. Yes? Okay.
Yeah, it's with
So Harpreet has already introduced me, so I'm not going to do that. But I would love to know a little more about all of you as well. But we don't have the time for everyone to introduce themselves. So please do share your name and your organization in the chat, just so we get a sense of who's in this room and who we're in conversation with today. This is by no means something that we are giving to you. It's also a space for us to all learn and share together. So we'd love to know who you are. As Harpreet mentioned, I am the India Partnerships Consultant. And what that really means is I grow the Giving Tuesday movement through partnerships with amazing networks like We Do Good and all of you who are in this room. So it's really the power of people like We Do Good and all of you that helps the movement that is Giving Tuesday grow and be what it is. So I'm very grateful that you've come here and shared space with us. Just going to quickly go over what we're going to do today. So I'm going to give you a very short introduction into Giving Tuesday and what we mean by giving moments, because we realize, we use this terminology, but maybe not everyone understands what it is, right? So I'm just going to share what that is. Then most of our time is going to be spent actually working together to create an effective Giving Moments campaign. Something to note is that while we're in this 50 minutes, it's a time for you to work alongside and practice. But you take all of this input, and we'll share the slides and all the resources with you. And then you can do this yourself with your team and your organization later. So use this as a practice session. And so the more you engage, the more questions you ask, the easier it will be for you to take all of these tools and make them come to life for you and your organization. And then we have some time for questions. So just to get, please do share your questions in the chat. Harpreet and our friends at We Do Good are going to be monitoring. And yourself on mute, please, if you're not speaking. But if there's anything that you don't understand, I'm speaking too fast, I'm using words that are not making sense, that's all totally fine. Please just ask. This space, again, I'm saying, is for you. So the more you make use of it, the better it'll be. So I'm going to start with sharing a little bit about the Giving Tuesday movement. Giving Tuesday was created in 2012, and it started as a very simple idea. What if we had one day that encourages people to do good? And over the past 12 years, that simple idea has grown into a global movement that works year-round, and that's all about giving So in generosity, it's about collaborating around growing generosity, and it's about celebrating generosity. So those three things are really the main ways that Giving Tuesday has grown and become this global movement. And the vision of the movement is a world based on shared humanity and radical generosity. Now, shared humanity is the simple idea that every single one of us, everyone in this room and everyone in the world, has a role to play in the world we want to see, right? We have an active role to play in creating the world that we want to see. And radical generosity is the idea that the suffering of another is as insufferable to me as my own suffering or the suffering of a loved one, that I'm not able to look away from the suffering of another. And it's pushing me to act because I know that I can do something to create the world that I want, which is one which is more just and where there's less suffering. And it's really championing the very simple idea that everyone has something to give and every act of generosity counts. Now let this sink in. Every single one of us has something to give. This could be time. This could be our time. This could be our talents, a skill that you have that you can share with someone, our treasures, our money or our things. Something we often forget, which is our ties, like networks and connections. Even if you create a connection between someone, that's an act of generosity that you're doing. And your testimony or your voice, which is talking about an issue, raising your voice about something. And that all of these things count equally. There's no such thing as an act of generosity too small. The smallest thing can make a difference. And I'm sure all of you know this already. Most of you in this room are nonprofit organizations and are championing this idea on a daily basis. So what are giving moments, right? I've told you a little bit about Giving Tuesday, and we're here to understand how to leverage a giving moment. A giving moment is essentially a moment in time when people are more primed to give, right? It's a time when giving or the volume around generosity and giving increases in the world. And this is both by the collective actions of organizations and people who want to increase generosity, and by givers, right? So givers want to be part of a larger community. And that's where a giving moment is really useful. And we don't like to make this comparison often, but you can think of it in relation to how the retail industry has understood the power of a moment, right? A shared moment. And that is the sale season. You'll notice that every year at specific times around key holidays, all of the companies and all of the brands and shops say one unified message: come shop, everything is on sale, right? So they've realized that their collective voice, having a sale at the same time, all of them, actually leads to more than if they did it individually. Now, apply this to the apply this to the nonprofit sector, and you'll see that actually there are so many giving moments already, so many times where, especially in Indian culture, generosity is already coming to the fore. And we are really lucky that this festive season is full of such giving moments, right? So many festivals and so many occasions are happening where people are more likely to give. There's, of course, Dan Utsav, which is happening from the 2nd to the 8th. That's a huge giving moment. It's actually a festival of giving. Then there's many others. There's World Girl Child Day. There's World Kindness Day in November. And there's Giving Tuesday, which is on the 3rd of December. Now, what does this mean, right? Why am I sharing about these giving moments? It's because in your normal fundraising strategy, we have noticed that giving moments provide these spikes, right? They provide these spikes and this increase in giving. And that's because organizations cleverly, which we're going to learn today, organizations cleverly leverage these moments. So it's not just going to happen automatically. Just because you've started a fundraising campaign, that doesn't mean that you're going to effectively make use of a giving moment. You have to create your campaign in such a way that giving moments are included and leveraged. A lot of organizations do things like matches, They do things like other incentives, non-monetary incentives like shout outs. And that really helps people realize that, okay, this is my normal strategy. And on a giving moment, how can I raise the volume? And raise the volume it does. So giving moments have a huge impact on fundraising. And this is only data from the US because that's where Giving Tuesday has the most robust partnerships. But look at this number, $3.1 billion was raised on the single day of Giving Tuesday last year. And by that, I mean, Giving Tuesday is not a platform, right, that receives donations and passes it on. It's actually a movement that facilitates generosity. These are all donations that are going directly from retail givers to organizations. So Giving Tuesday has nothing to do with the transaction. And the average ticket size of these donations is not high. It's about $150, which is quite low. So the individual donors, like everyday givers, have managed to come together on a single day to raise $3.1 billion for the causes that they care about. So there's a huge impact that a giving moment can have. And it's obviously not just money. There's voice, there's things, there's skills donated, there's time volunteered. And of course, We Do Good is a wonderful example of how sharing your skill can have a huge impact, even monetarily, for an organization, right? That you don't have to pay for expertise, that you can rely on generosity, and expertise will come your way. So with all of that, I wanted to share a little more about what we've learned about giving moments, right? What works? The first thing, and maybe this might not resonate with all of you, is that generous people are generous. What I really mean by that is that someone who's given to you already is actually more likely to give to you again. Firstly, they're already bought into your cause because you've inspired them to give. But maybe it's about making the right ask at the right time, right? So your current supporters are actually your best chance. You just have to make the right ask because people want multiple ways to engage with a cause. You'll see from our data that giving only money is actually the smallest number of people. People want different ways to engage with your cause. And maybe a giving moment is an opportunity for you to experiment and try something new and get your current donors to do something different and experience another part of your work that might inspire them to give more, but in different ways. We've also learned from our recent report in 2023 that people are willing to give across ideological and community boundaries, that community and ideology are no barrier to generosity, but that dollars raised are decreasing across the world. Now, that's a reality that all of us in the sector have to just sit with and understand, right? All of you might have been experiencing this. But that's an opportunity to think differently about your community and about generosity. Yes, dollars donated are decreasing, but the world is still a generous place. How can we just shift our mindset and adapt to these new realities? And we must do it as a community of nonprofits. All of us need to rely on each other, need to rely on our intelligence and our knowledge together to be able to make this shift happen. Doing it alone is not going to work. We need to diversify what we see, who we see as donors and what we see as generosity, right? And the key to that really is an abundance mindset. Now, you might be thinking, in a giving moment like Giving Tuesday, isn't it a competitive environment where all the organizations are trying to get donations and competing with one another? Now, what we've seen consistently with Giving Tuesday is that's absolutely not true. That's actually a function of what we call, I guess, in economics, the fixed pie fallacy. It's the belief, it's the wrong belief, right? That there's a fixed pie and all of us are competing for the same resources. What we know about generosity, and I'm sure what all of you already feel about generosity, is that it is infinite, that humans always have the capacity to give. How can we adapt the way we think and use an abundance mindset when we seek giving to be able to really tap into the potential. And we know that that's possible, but we actually have to be creative. So my last thing to say is that Giving Tuesday is on the 3rd of December this year. As I mentioned, there are many other giving moments that are happening throughout this season. How can you use this as an opportunity to just try something new, be innovative, and really use that abundance mindset? And most of this workshop is going to give you tools and practical ways that you can actually do that. But I'm going to stop here just for a minute to see how this is sitting with everyone. Do you have any questions? Do you have any, reflections? Please do share them in the chat, or if anyone would like to unmute, we'll take 1 or 2 reflections or questions. Anything you're feeling as I'm saying this? Yes, Kenneth.
I was not too sure, but I thought that this was I had what do you say, like a preconceived idea of coming to this session, but
Okay.
it was not what I had preconceived. And I think now I'm getting an insight into what we can potentially do as an organization around the Giving Tuesday idea and leverage the brand and leverage your, what do you say, vision and your idea. And that's a great vehicle to ride on, and I see that that's what it's all about. And it's sinking in. So that's just a comment I need to make.
Kenneth, thank you so much for sharing that and saying that out loud. Firstly, I, of course, very much appreciate it. But I do think that, when you start thinking more and just absorbing and sitting with it, you will come up with ways that it works for you. Giving Tuesday, any giving moment for that matter, has value if it has value for you, right? So you have to figure out and do some thinking to see, okay, there's this wave that's happening already and it's flowing, right?
How do we ride,
Part of it.
how do we ride the wave,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
get momentum from that wave and not have to start from scratch. So I like this idea, and I think already I'm like ideas buzzing in my head with college campuses, with communities. Our offices can have spaces where when people come, benefactors come, they start seeing it, and maybe they are engaged, and I'm sure we can work out some ideas. Yeah.
100%. And you won't be alone in this because there are hundreds of countries and people across the world who are doing this. So it's in our benefit to join this global movement, right? Because we can also take advantage of the things that are happening in other parts of the world and show that we can match that enthusiasm. Great. Thank you, Kenneth. I really appreciate that. Now we're going to just go into, okay, cool. So how do you ride this wave? And what does it look like, right? Now, the first thing, you can see my screen, right? Yes, awesome. So the first thing that we're going to talk about are campaigns, right? Creating a campaign for an upcoming giving moment. But when I say the word campaign, I mean something quite specific, right? So I just wanted to share that before we get started. You have your you have your funding needs, right? You have your resource needs. Now that's the top layer. With that resource needs, you're creating a retail fundraising strategy, right? So only part of your resources are coming from everyday givers. Now, the way to make the most use of a retail fundraising strategy along with giving moments is to create a campaign, right? So within your retail fundraising strategy, how do you create a campaign? And a campaign is simply something that makes a very specific ask with a time period. A campaign has to have a start and an end date. And the ask of that campaign has to be very specific. So don't hedge your entire fundraising goal on a campaign. You choose a time period that makes sense to you. Obviously, I'm here to say, put a giving moment in there, whatever the giving moment is, and see and experiment with new things. And what we've seen works with campaigns is relevance, right? So while you're doing the work that you're doing year round, and it's very important and you acknowledge it, how can you tell people that this is relevant to them now? And campaign is a great way to do that, right? It creates a sense of urgency that, yes, let's say Grameen First, as in Kenneth's organization, is doing wonderful work throughout the year. Why should I give to them right now, right? So you need to tell me, oh, this is your chance, and you need to create a sense of urgency. It's also genuinely a great time to try something new, but in a controlled environment, right? You're not hedging your whole fundraising strategy on this campaign. You're using it as a time to try something different. It's a specific period of time, and you get to choose that time period. You're trying something new and you're learning from it. And then you grow, right? You grow from that learning. Don't try something extremely big the first time you're trying it, is what I'm trying to say. Do something small, but use it as a time to learn and be creative. First step into creating a campaign is coming up with goals, right? And our first question to you, which I will request someone to share the Padlet link in the chat, please, is what are you hoping to get out of an upcoming giving moment, right? So what are your goals for a giving moment? I hope you can still see my screen. Yeah. So you will get this Padlet link where all you need to do is go down here on the bottom right. There's a plus sign, and you can just type Giving Tuesday, because we would love to know your organization. What are my goals for a giving campaign? To have more people leverage Giving Tuesday, right? So that's one of my goals for giving moments. And you just have to say publish. One last thing, right. Okay, so you just have to put in your name and then it'll show up here. So it's a space for us to see each other's goals and sort of work together rather than, everyone sharing. But if you're having trouble, please share in the chat as well. And our friends at We Do Good will put it on the Padlet for you. So I'm going to take 2 minutes and stop sharing my screen. And all of you can just write in there, what are your goals? What are you hoping to achieve from a giving moment in this upcoming season?
I hope everyone is able to access the Padlet link. If someone is having any issues, please tell us. We're here to assist you. I would encourage everyone to write their goals on the Padlet for Mihika to review and maybe get a quick recommendation when she's skimming. So, yeah.
Just to get a sense of, as a community, what are we thinking about? What are our needs? What do we all...
Hello.
Yes. Ram? Oh, is that Ram from Volunteer for India? Yes. It's nice to see some familiar faces as well. I'll just take a quick look at this Padlet. Okay, so we have to raise funds for our program and to leverage talent and bring in more supporters for Esther. Amazing. Great. Building community of supporters and volunteers, and in the process to kickstart individual fundraising initiatives. Great. So you need volunteers and you need givers, donors to raise 30 lakh INR. Great. That's a great goal. To raise unrestricted funds, amazing, and awareness around the work. So I'm seeing a lot of fundraising, which is, of course, fair enough. I'm seeing some volunteering. I'm seeing raising awareness. Great to reach more people, connect with potential donors. So I love this. So all of us have, you can even just look at this board and see that our needs are similar, right? And that's something that connects all of us. That the way that we should engage in giving moments is we should look at it as a collaborative process. I'm just going to move ahead and share. Please continue to share as they come up. I'm going to share. Yes, right. So now you have these goals, right? You have something that you're hoping to achieve from a giving moment. But a goal is only as good as it's smart. Now you have to create a smart goal for your Giving Moments campaign, because that's the only way you'll know whether you've actually been successful, right? So what is a SMART goal? It's a specific goal. It's measurable, right? It has to have some ability to say whether I've achieved it or not. And usually this is a number, right? So if you're saying raise money, how much money? From how many people? It's aspirational. Now, this is something that's entirely dependent on each of you. This will look different in different contexts and for different organizations. But it should be something that, you feel slightly excited about. While it should be realistic and relevant, don't create your giving moments goal that's something that's, very easy to achieve. It's about encouraging creativity. It's about, putting your heart and soul into making this happen. So it should be slightly aspirational. Of course, it should be relevant to your work and your needs. That's not something to reiterate. And time bound, right? Because you need to be able to have a start and end date to your thing. I'll just give you an example. Many of you have said raise money, right? As your goal. Now, a SMART goal around that could look like raise 50,000 or 5 lakhs to purchase 200 chairs for a classroom in our school by December 3rd, 2024. So I know in this exactly how much money I need, what do I need the money for, and by when, right? And I know what the money is going to be used for as well. So at the end, on December 4th, I can actually see, okay, did I raise 5 lakhs? Yes, no. Did I actually buy 200 chairs with those 5 lakhs? Yes, no. Did I raise it by December 3rd? Yes, no. And that's how you learn. Another way is to engage our volunteer network to raise 10 lakhs from 100 donors between July 1st and October 31st. Now, this is a different way to raise money. You're not asking directly. You're engaging your volunteers to get more givers. But even then, you need to know how many, by when, and how many volunteers do you want to reach, right? So in converting your goal into a SMART goal is actually the biggest trick that I can share with you. Its value cannot be underestimated. Now, Harpreet or someone is going to share the second Padlet link, right? So in this Padlet, you all have all shared your goals to raise awareness, mobilize resources, etc. Can you convert that into a SMART goal? To reiterate, a SMART goal is specific, it's measurable. Now, aspirational and relevant, I'll leave up to you. You have to decide whether that's the case. And it's time bound. And it's just one statement. It should not require any further explanation, and it should be your guiding star for your campaign. So I'm going to give you another few minutes to see if you can convert your goal into a SMART goal. And just try it. It's okay if you're not going to get it right the first time. But the whole point is for us to work together and see how we can make it better. And if you're not able to share on the Padlet, please share on the chat as well. That's totally fine. We will. Yes. I'm also going to share my screen to, if we have any responses, if people are trying. So I'll do mine as well, right? So mine was to have more people leverage Giving Tuesday. Let's see if I can make that.
हाँ हाँ
To raise rupees 15 lakhs through individual and corporate donors, ensuring that each of the 100 children receives personalized learning resources to support within 12 months. Amazing. This is a great SMART goal. What do you all think? Does it answer all the, all the criteria? So we know how much, so it's measurable. We know 15 lakhs. We also have another measurement criteria. We have 100 children, right? So we want to use this money to ensure 100 children receive personalized learning resources. And we want to do this in 12 months. It would be great if you could define the start date, right? So 12 months from today or 12 months from tomorrow, just so you know when you're starting clearly and when the 12 months is from. To give education kits to 500 students in the Dhinji district of Assam by December. Great. This is a great goal. Simple. You know that you need 500 students, you need education kits for 500 students, where you're going to do it and by when. To raise 30 lakhs in the next 15 days to ensure 5 lakh children have a strong early childhood education. Amazing. This 30 lakhs in the next 15 days, I'm not sure whose goal this is. And this is not a question you have to answer right now. I'm wondering if it's feasible to raise 30 lakhs in 15 days. Just a question for you to think about, right? Is 15 days a good amount of time to raise the amount of money you need? This is highly aspirational from my experience of fundraising campaigns. But if that makes sense to you, that's great. Just think about it. Starting 20th September 2024, building a community of 125 supporters and volunteers by 3rd December. And in the process of kickstarting individual fundraising initiatives by raising 10 lakhs to pilot. Okay. I think starting date, we have an end date. We have a number of volunteers. I would request you, the one who's doing this, to make this 2 separate goals, right? Because it's not specific enough at the moment. It's 2 goals in 1 goal statement. So how can you split that up? 1 goal can be about volunteers, which is great. And 1 goal can be about fundraising. And when you see them separately, you'll be able to plan your activities also separately for those 2 goals. Okay. Is everyone understanding and getting the SMART goals thing? As I mentioned, this is something for you to try right now, right? It's just a practice round. Now, after this workshop, given with all of these resources we will share, you can run a SMART goal session in your team and with your team to come up with a goal that makes sense for all of you. Okay. If we're going to go ahead and we'll take questions towards the end, right? Okay, so now you've set your goal. You know what you want to achieve, you know by when, and you know from who and for what, right? Those are the questions that a SMART goal answers. Now it's about getting your story straight, your narrative straight, because now you have to go and seek support from people and different organizations and or whoever you need support from for your goal. The first question I have, and you can just quickly put this in the chat, is according to you, how much time do you think an average donor spends on a fundraising page before deciding to give, before deciding whether they want to support you or not? How much time on average do you think a person spends on a fundraising page? 30 seconds. Okay. Anyone has any more ideas? 10 seconds. Okay. I'll take 1 more if anyone thinks it's more or less. 1 minute. Okay. 2 minutes. So it's clear that we all have very different ideas, right? Of how much time we have to convince. The whole point of asking this is, how much time do you have to convince someone to give? That's another way of saying this question. And from Global Giving, which is one of the biggest crowdfunding global platforms, shockingly, the answer is 4.2 seconds. So they've done sort of testing on the click rate and the time people spend on a page. you have less than 5 seconds to convince someone about whether they should stay on your page or not, right? And give to you. And what's the first thing that they're going to see in those 4 seconds? Just your title. Just the actual title of your project. So this is pulled from a Global Giving page about a project that's, so you need a project that exists. So you need to have a specific and action-oriented title because you have very little time to convince someone. But you need to ensure that some things are reflected in your project title. Specifically, you need to say who, right? Who is being impacted by this thing? Here it's village children. How are they being impacted by my cause? What am I doing? I'm providing education. How many are being impacted by this? 40. And where? And the where you might not think is important, but many people give geographically. If even if you don't get them in the education, girls and 40, you might get them in the Bodh Gaya. Because they have some memory, some connection to the place, right? So the where is also important. And it shows that you're situated in a location and you're connected to community, right? So four main things you need to ask or answer in your project title. It has to be simple, but it has to answer who, how are you supporting them, how many, and where, right? So this is another one from Give. Do you think that this project title answers all of the questions, or is it a good project title? Is there something missing? Just you can put your answers in the chat. Exactly. Place, right? So time is also a great one. So the time is sort of, I'll address the time one, but yeah, that's a great one. Thank you so much. Yes, so the place is missing, right? I don't know where these 400 abandoned grandparents are. And maybe that's one of the reasons that I probably won't give. The time one, it's a good question. Basically, the time one is addressed here, right? Or if you see on the bottom right, it says 4 days left. Now, the time in most fundraising pages is already built in. Because when you're starting a campaign, you have to say a start and end date. But the more urgency you build within your campaign, the more your campaign is likely to be successful. This is just about your campaign narrative, right? The other thing that people look at are high resolution images. Apart from the title, the image is the best way to capture your audience. And there's a lot of debate about this in the nonprofit sector. But what we found, especially in Giving Tuesday and through Global Giving, is that positive and empowering imagery is the best way to go. One person, so you can really connect with them, and then also you may show their communities. Have a focal point to connection. This is the kind of photo that really works with most audiences because they want to connect with one person, to connect with a person's story rather than a large community. And the best way to think about this, about the images of your community is, would you want an image like that out there of you on the internet? If the answer is yes, it's a good image. If the answer is no, you might want to rethink, right? How would you want to be represented if someone was taking a photo of you? And that's a great guiding principle to choosing the right image for your fundraising page. And finally, it's your project description. So now in this 4.2 seconds, you have an engaging title, you have a great project photo. Now, finally, someone has reached your project description. And in my observation, this is where many organizations go wrong. We tend to over-explain, right? We don't, again, if people have in that 4.2 seconds, then the likelihood that they'll spend the time to read your full description is also low, right? So keep it short, keep it simple. 4 very clear paragraphs. You may even divide the paragraph with a heading: summary, challenge, solution, and long-term impact. The summary is the most important. I'm not likely to read beyond that. But even if I am, then you're just telling me what's the challenge, how am I solving this challenge, and what impact is it having, right? So the summary must not be more than 500 words. That's also long. And it has to make sure it answers a few key questions, right? So this is a summary from Seva Mandir, one of their projects on global giving. It's very short, and we feel it answers the key questions without jargon, right? You're talking to everyday people. Put yourself in the shoes of your giver when you're creating a project summary, rather than wanting to say everything you have to say about your project, right? We're all very passionate about the work we do, but this is about seeking support from someone else. So you need to put yourself in their shoes. Just take a second to go over this. I'd love to hear in the chat as well what you think of this project summary. In a simple word, like, do you think it tells you everything you need to know about the project? Are you more likely to give to this after reading this? Do you understand at least what the project is about? Okay, I'm going to assume that that's a yes. And if anyone has any questions or, disagrees with me, great. So tells a compelling story. Thank you, Kenneth. I also think so. And I think this is all you need to say. Really try to distill what you're doing into very simple communication. And that's the key to getting more support. And apply this not just for your campaign everywhere, even in your reports, even in your general communication, it'll really be useful. Okay, so the last part of our planning your campaign session is, now you have a goal, you've converted it into a SMART goal, right? You have some tips and tricks about how to represent your story. You have a clear title that's action oriented. You have some good images, right? Which really invoke support and connection to your supporters. And you have a simple project description. Now, who are you going to say all this to? Who are you going to ask for support? And this is the place where a lot of organizations and a lot of people actually get stuck, right? Because there's often the thinking that, I don't know, I've tapped out my network. I have no more supporters. I've asked everyone. But I want to posit to you that crowdfunding, right? And really good crowdfunding is not about getting more people in your crowd. It's actually about making the most use of those who are already there. How do you make better use of the people who are already in your network? Because as we've learned from a few slides ago, generous people are generous. Someone who's already given to you is much more likely to give more, but you need to think differently about what you're asking them, right? And this whole exercise is going to help you do that. But first question, just to share that we're going to be doing a network mapping exercise. And just to make it abundantly clear, a network is just a system, like it's a group of people. And a map is a basic visualization of that network, right? And that's something that we're going to be doing today. Let's skip this. The first question that I have is, who do you even think is in your crowd? And this you don't have to put in the chat, or you may just write it down in a piece of paper or anywhere on your laptop or your phone. Who do you think is in your crowd? 2 hints. It's more than you think. And everyone's will look different, right? All of our individual crowds and the people in our networks will look different. But can you just say some kinds of networks, like some different kinds of networks that you're all a part of? Like, I'll go first. My colleagues are in my crowd. You can either just unmute and shout it out or put it in the chat. Who is in your crowd? Who do you think is in your crowd?
Family and friends.
Family and friends, absolutely. Your own staff, 100%. Anyone else? Okay, I mean, I'm sure you're all thinking about it. This is just a simple indicator. Of course, there's family, there's friends, right? Your network on LinkedIn, family and friends, absolutely. Previous colleagues, 100%. So maybe colleagues in a previous organization, your neighbors, community leaders or people in your community, think about even religious institutions that you're a part of. All of those people are in your crowd, they're in your community, your previous donors. We can broaden the circle, think bigger. To your board members are in your crowd, local business owners in the area that you live, right? You go to a chai shop at work, that person is also in your crowd, and other people you meet there are also in your crowd.
Vendors,
Diaspora, sorry, is
our own
someone?
vendors.
Your
I
own
said
vendors,
vendor
absolutely.
because
Diaspora,
we give them
you
business.
have, sorry, Kenneth,
We
I
give them business. We give them business throughout the year. So it's one time we tell them you give back to us.
Absolutely. I love how you're thinking about it. Your vendors are in your crowd. Indian diaspora, I mean, we have so many people. I mean, I don't know if this is true for you, but I have at least 2 uncles who live outside of India. Those people are also in my crowd. I'm sure you know someone like that. Leaders in the sector, we go for conferences and talks and all of these things often. Those people are in your crowd. Religious institutions, basically your crowd is much bigger than you would intuitively think it is all I'm trying to say. And a great way of looking or understanding your crowd is through these concentric circles, right? If you're in the middle, your primary circle or your primary crowd are people that you have direct contact with, right? These are all the people that I probably mentioned before. Your friends, your family, your current staff, your board members, different kinds of people. These are all people you can directly connect to. You have the first degree of connection with them. Your secondary circle are the connections of your primary circle, right? So they're the friends of friends. They are your board members' family. They are your colleagues' alumni. They are your alumni communities, families. Do you get what I'm saying? That these direct people, but they also know a few other people, right? In their crowd. So that's your secondary circle. And your tertiary circle is actually people who are 3 degrees removed, right? Who are friends of friends of friends. You don't have a way to connect with them directly. They might be also very influential people like government officials and stuff who are needed for your work. Your job is to start from the middle. The best way to grow your crowd is from your primary circle. You're not going to reach this tertiary circle directly. It's not going to happen. How are you going to reach them? Why should they care about you? Why should they give you support? Peer to peer, right? Connecting, using your crowd to gain more networks and supporters is the best way to increase your network and get the most out of it. And just a reminder that not everyone in your network is going to give money. And that's totally okay. How can you think differently about the different things that people have to offer for your project, right? Connections, highly undervalued. How can you get someone in your crowd to connect you to 5 other people? Talent, as We Do Good has shown, completely valuable. How can you get someone to just share a talent with you, some skill you don't have in your organization, you need it for your campaign? Voice or testimony. Get someone to share, find an influencer to share. But how will you get them to do that? We're going to start very simple and very small, right? We're going to do a crowd mapping or network mapping exercise together. Now bring out a paper and pen or just some place where you feel comfortable writing. You don't need to do this on Padlet. Step 1 is to identify 5 networks to which you belong. And step 2 is to write down the actual names of 5 people in each of those networks that you belong to. It could look something like this, right? So like you are in the middle, there are 5 lines around you, names of networks, and 5 people within each of those networks. just start with this simple exercise. I'll give you all a few minutes. If anyone is struggling and you're not able to, think about it. Yes. Someone has asked for me to keep slides. Absolutely, I can do that. The two simple prompts, 5 networks and 5 names within each network that you're a part of. If you could just put like a thumbs up or say done in the chat, so I just know, how many people are, if I can move ahead. Okay, I'm going to assume that you all are all working on this and just move ahead. Stop me if that's not okay. So you've come up with these names, right? So you can keep that aside. Now, there are 2 ways of looking at, firstly, these 25 people that you've mapped, and in general, your network. Some people in this group are going to be givers, right? People who directly support you with some need. Maybe you ask them for money, maybe you ask them for volunteering. They are your givers, and there are always givers in your crowd. But the other type of people are going to be your getters, your ambassadors, the people who you really nurture to get more giving, to get more givers, right? So you have givers, and they are absolutely valuable. And then you have getters. And again, I'm saying that peer-to-peer fundraising, right? Peer-to-peer resource mobilization is one of the most effective strategies. So nurturing these getters is very important, right? But I want to, and basically a getter is an advocate for your project. So let's start with, essentially, you've done these 2 tasks, right? You've identified 5 networks and 5 people in each network. So you have a group of 25. Now, let's assign qualities, or based on our understanding, what do we think each of these people in our network can give? And identify 5 potential getters. Sorry, the perils of working from home. I just had a delivery. I'm just coming back. Okay, is everyone able to do this? So essentially, you've now taken your 25 people. You've said, okay, in my opinion, I think this person can give this. And I've circled the name of 5 people who I think are advocates, who can be getters, right, for my cause. Now, what do you do with these getters? How do you really nurture them? So the people who are your getters you have to take a little extra care of them, right? These are people essentially who have maybe a large network. That's why you've identified them as getters. Maybe they probably have some time to commit. And generally, your getter should have a little extra time to give to your project. They're passionate about your cause. Ideally, a getter is someone who's already given to you before, right? So you don't have to convince them of your cause. They already are on board. And they're willing to be an ambassador and they share your story. And it doesn't matter. Obviously, their location doesn't matter because your getters are directing givers to you. And age doesn't matter. Anyone can be a getter. We've had some campaigns where young people in schools have been the best getters because they've started talking about this thing to their parents, right? So really think creatively and differently about who my ambassadors are. And if you're an organization working with children, having young people be ambassadors is such a wonderful way to increase the spirit of generosity, right? Among the young people as well. So what are you supposed to do with these getters? The first thing you're supposed to do is build trust, right? Because you're really asking them to show up for your cause. They must know who you are, how you operate. They might be transparent with them about what you want from them and what your needs are from them. They are just here because they really care about you. If they've signed up to be a getter, they already care about your cause, right? So you don't have to convince them, but you have to build trust. Help them set goals. Now, this is something we often don't do with our getters. We'll ask someone to do something and ask for their help. But imagine if these 5 getters had their own SMART goals. Then everyone would be able to track how successful they are as getters. And it gives them a feeling that they have something to work towards. Maybe you do this crowd mapping activity with them, right? So that you support them really in thinking creatively about their campaign. So all you're doing is guiding and supporting. They are going to be doing the actual work, but you have to make the process easy for them. You have to provide them with templates and materials and photos and ways of talking about your project so it doesn't feel overwhelming. You have to, of course, follow up with them regularly. Think of them as an extension of your team, right? And that's really what gives people a sense that they're showing up, they're special, they're really involved in the work that you do. So the more involved they are, the better able they are to get more for you. And of course, say thank you a lot. Acknowledge their efforts because these are people who are going to be, maybe lifetime ambassadors and advocates for your cause. It's really important to showcase that you care what they're doing, that you've not just asked someone to do something and forgotten about them, right? That their efforts matter to you. And a great way to do this is to share their story as well, as part of the story of your community. So just to reiterate, you have your primary circle, right? You have people that you know. This is the best way to go from your primary to your secondary circle is to identify getters and ambassadors because they are the ones who are going to be able to grow and expand your network. But at the same time, you have to nurture your givers, right? Because many of your givers have the potential to become getters in the future. So if you think about your whole network as nurturing more ambassadors and inviting more people into your project, into your cause, your job in a way becomes slightly easier because all you're doing is sharing the amazing work that you're doing with people who already care about you. Great. So we have a lot of time for questions. So I'm hoping people have some. But basically, we're at the end of planning your campaign, right? So what you've done until now is you have SMART goals. You have a narrative, a really good narrative. You have a network. And within this network, you've identified at least 25 people only from 5 networks. You know what they're going to give and you know who your ambassadors can be. You also know how to engage an ambassador. And you've done this in less than an hour. Imagine just taking all of this input and spending a little more time doing it with your team. Spending 1 hour in just a simple network mapping exercise with everyone who's in your team. you will realize that your network is in more than the hundreds. And then combined with your easy campaign narrative, all you really have to do is find different ways to talk to people, right? I'm making it sound easy, but actually, if you plan it, it's not so hard. And I would love to hear from all of you how you've done it, right, over the next couple of months. I wanted to share, though, that just breaking us back to the point of how Giving Tuesday is a chance to experiment. Now, you've seen with all of us being in this room, all of our needs are connected, right? A lot of our needs are connected and our goals are connected. So why not collaborate? We've seen a lot of coalitions, right, of organizations, and they do something really interesting on Giving Tuesday. They do mission over brand, right? So many there's one of the coalitions is called Give for DV, for domestic violence. Hundreds of organizations across the US working on the issue of domestic violence come together and create a coalition and fundraise under a common banner. And so therefore, they take advantage of each other's network and they tell their donors that we actually care about solving the problem rather than my organization getting money. That the problem is more important than our organization. And I know all of you believe that anyway. You know, all of you are already organizations who care deeply about solving this problem. But how can you think differently and bring some innovation into this? Maybe you host a challenge for your ambassadors and say, Giving Tuesday is coming up. Why don't you all do your separate challenges? Maybe use Giving Tuesday as the launch, as the start or the end date of a Giving Moments campaign, right? The best way to use Giving Moments is to have as many of them in the middle and find different ways to take advantage of them. And we have all of these tools and resources which are open to all, which we will share with you after this call. Please adapt them and use them as you see fit. It's all about making you more resilient and more able to take advantage of the opportunities. Right? So finally, you are a generosity leader, right? You feel inspired by generosity and you want to try something new. And that's really the willingness to try something new and learn. You want to practice and use Giving Tuesday as a way to experiment with and something that you've not done before. And again, we would love to hear your stories and your, the ways that you've taken this forward. I will take your questions in a second, but the last thing I wanted to share is that we have a workshop upcoming, which is next Thursday on Zoom, which is about campaign communication, right? So it's about, you've created this campaign, you have your narrative, but how do you tell the world about it? And we would love for all of you, if you are interested, to join us, to come up with your campaign identity and how to leverage social media for your campaign. I will share the link to registration in the chat. But we have a lot of time to take your questions, not just your questions, your reflections, how is this sitting with all of you? Is this something you feel inspired to do? Is this like, I don't think I can do this? I really want to know how this is feeling. And of course, any questions you have, I'd love to explain anything more if you didn't understand it.
You guys can raise your hands if you have any questions, and then we can take it one by one. Or if you don't want to raise your hand, you can also put it in the chat, and Mihika and I can coordinate on that front.
Yeah.
Feel free to ask questions, recommendations, your reflections on the session.
Yeah. Or even share your experience, like, oh, we tried something and it didn't work out. Or we tried something and it worked really well. This is for a space for all of us.
I just wanted to know if, how do we leverage the brand logos? Are we allowed to do that on our campaign materials, digital or otherwise?
Absolutely. Great question, Ken. The Giving Tuesday logos are free and openly available on our website. I'll just put the link in here in a second or share it with the resources. But I encourage you to, I mean, this is something I didn't share earlier. It's a slightly conceptual, but make it your own, right? So we have all of these people who've created Giving Tuesday campaigns with unique spin. We have Giving Zoo Day about animal conservation. We have a campaign called Love Your Nuts, which is a unique spin. It's about prostate cancer. It's a campaign that's raising awareness on prostate cancer. We have in Mexico, we have Un Día para Dar. It's in Spanish, it's called A Day of Giving, right? So make it your own. Maybe it can be Grameen Gives. It can be anything. But please do use the logos and tag us. The way to connect with the movement is to tag us and share your stories. We would love to amplify and add, to showcase the amazing work that you're doing in relation to generosity and Giving Tuesday. I'll just put that in here. Thanks, Ken.
We have Maninder who's raised. So, Maninder, if you do want to unmute yourself.
Hi, Mihika. Hi, Harpreet. Thanks a lot. This is a super useful session, and I'm actually very new to this whole sphere of fundraising and campaigning. Just had a question when Mihika you mentioned about we've been doing our work all through the year, but these campaigns, like you said, they create a sense of urgency. So how do we sell this idea to the funders that, that this is the time that we want this funding? How do we justify the whole idea that we want funding at this time because ... What, how do we justify that whole urgency situation?
That's a really good question. And I'm going to give you a slightly different answer, but please, anyone, so I'm not by no means the only expert in this room, right? I'm not even an expert, actually. All of you are the ones who do this all the time. So please, anyone add as well. You don't have to justify, actually, your urgency. You just have to make people feel the sense of, oh my God, this campaign is ending. I have to give now. And so all you need to really do is say, 4 days left, give now to make sure that every child has, a thriving education or good education. Only 5 days to show up for the community of girls. Only 6 days left to, support in the cleanup of this beach. I don't, at least in my understanding, the first thing I think is not, why are there only 6 days left? I think, okay, if I want to do something, I got to do it now. And it's fine. If I don't want to do something now, that's also okay. But, you just have to give people, like in the sale season, right? It's when you hear, oh, sale ends on 31st October, you're not really asking, why is it ending on 31st October? They don't have to justify that. They just have to say, this is our end date. Does that make sense? But as long as you connect with people on the value, right? If you are someone who also cares about this, act now. Vivek, I'm not sure if your name is Vivek, but it's a
Yeah. I'm Sudipta, and so I have done so we basically run a small primary care health center, and we have a small trust associated with that, and so I have done a couple of crowdfunding fundraisers through friends and family to in fact start this health center. I did crowdfund, and yes, like you mentioned quite a bit of pointers. If you have a specific number that you are targeting at, and those are easier to raise then. But I have a question in the sense like, how many times do you feel that you can approach the same crowd? Or yeah, you have given a good point about, increasing your circle to reach out. But then the thing that comes sometimes in my mind is like, how many times can I ask the same network to, pitch for causes at different times? Or like, should it just be an annual fundraiser if you want to tap into that pool of givers who are already giving to you? And I have another question in the sense, sometimes can some be converted into, like sometimes for operational needs. So what I observe, people give for a capex need, that is easy for them to give, but then to have a recurrent set of donors for recurrent needs, suppose a monthly basis, 5,000 or something like that. How do you target towards that?
Yeah. So those are two really good questions. And your first question, just want to reflect and say, I'm sure you're not the only one who's feeling this way, right? Oh, I've just reached out to my whole community. How can I keep asking people for donations? And like I don't have like an answer to that because it's very much about connection and community. Someone to do you a favor. You're actually giving someone not doing the work we are doing for us. We are doing it because we believe that the world can be a better place, right? And I can contribute to supporting that. That's the feeling that you have to nurture in someone else. Because we know that everyone can contribute to creating a better world. And in fact, likely that most people actually want to do something. They want to do something good. They don't know how. And you are just giving them the opportunity to show up for something they already care about. And research from Giving Tuesday shows that, what's the biggest reason that someone hasn't given or someone doesn't give? They didn't get asked. Nobody asked them. So they care. They want to see better education. They want to see cleaner streets. They want to see less violence. All of us want a better world. And you are just the person who's giving me the opportunity to actually do something about it. So you're not saying, do me a favor. You're saying, you already care about this. This is the opportunity for you to act. Is that helping?
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
frame your thing like that. Don't say it's for me. Say it's for X person to have a better life.
Yeah.
And to your second question, which was about recurring donations, again, that's a great one, right? And there's like a whole other session that I can do about creating a good recurring strategy. But I don't know, I keep holding on to this idea that someone who's given to me, the way of showing that they care about my thing is by giving, right? So I shouldn't be worried too much about trying to convince them. They're already convinced. How do I make them from a giver to an ambassador to a co-creator? How do I involve them in my thing? Because I know I can't do it alone. Right? So how do I give them a feeling that, I really need you to make this happen? Instead of give 10 rupees. That's what I mean. Like those are two very different things. It's all about connection and community.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I hope some of this is helpful. I know I didn't answer your question. There's no answer.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Dr. Rupa?
Yes, hi. It may sound a little silly question. Many times when we read that, like typically you said ki these many days are left and you are supposed to give, and so many people have already given. We have raised like out of 50 lakh, we have raised 48 lakh already. And so, are these figures true? Why I'm asking this question is, like, for example, during this Raksha Bandhan, a small campaign that I had run with my organization where we had tapped almost all of our donors कि रक्षा बंधन के अवसर पे you to connect again, and around 200 people we had sent a letter on Raksha Bandhan and appealing for donation, and out of 200 only two replies came positively. So if I write something like this कि this is happening and these many days remaining, तो हमेशा तो हमारा इतना अट्रैक्टिव नंबर नहीं होता है, तो Are these numbers true? This was my feeling.
तो आपका सवाल है कि क्या दूसरे लोग अपने कैंपेन्स के बारे में सही नंबर्स कह रहे हैं, क्योंकि
जी,
हमारे अनुसार हमारे एक्सपीरियंस में ये तो नहीं हुआ है ना?
True. Yes, yes.
So, two things. The first one, I can't say whether someone's communication is true, but I think that the non-profit sector and the non-profit community, unfortunately, contrary to the narrative of that's out there, is one of the most honest and trustworthy sectors in the
Yeah,
world.
true.
You know, nobody is here because, like, people are genuinely
Show
here
off.
because they
Yeah,
care.
right.
You know, they're not just here to, like, clearly we're not all here to make buckets of money, because that's so different, you know. So we're all here because we care about something, and we have really no reason actually
Yeah,
to be dishonest about the work that we're doing.
yeah.
So I don't know, but I choose to trust, right? I choose to trust an organization when they're coming up with their narrative. And maybe that's true, maybe that's not true, but I can't really do anything about that. But to your other point about I reached out to 200 people and I only got 2 responses. Now that's definitely a challenge. The questions that I would ask you if, you know, I was posed with this, which we don't have to do in front of everyone, we can do it separately, is tell me a little more about your communication. What did you write in your email? What photos did you use? Did you use a story of someone? Did you maybe write to people directly? Did you just send one blanket, you know, people don't want to feel like they've been recipients of a mass email. So how do you customize and how do you create different, did you segment your audience of 200 people? Or did you treat them all as one singular community? Right? So there are so many ways to do communication that might lead to better results. I'm happy to discuss this separately.
Yeah,
It's just the reason it's not working is not because other people are lying.
yeah.
The reason it's not working is likely because you can do something better.
Better. Yeah, got it. Thank you. It is helpful.
Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Rupa. And thanks for sharing. You know, these are all examples that are very real for us. So the more we bring it out, the more others may see that they're not alone in these feelings. All of us struggle with the same stuff.
Yeah.
So we have 5 minutes left. I'm going to pass it over to Harpreet to share a little about.
Thank you so much. I think we are right on time with the session. So I'm just going to present my screen. We have a couple more updates with everyone to share. So just let me know if you're able to see it. Is it visible?
No, there seems to be just a small white line.
One second.
I don't know if this is just for me or everyone else.
No, it's just a white stripe across the screen.
Yeah.
Can someone else from the team share it, please?
Yeah, just give me 1 second.
Okay. In the meantime, I just wanted to thank Mihika. It was a pleasure having you here with us today. I think we've heard from everyone that, it was a great session, and all the insights were extremely actionable. And it was very generous of you to take out 1.5 hours of your time and, help our NGO partners and, help them implement their strategies. So thank you so much, Mihika, once again for joining us. Now, you from the session, you have a lot of actionable insights and next steps. But on our part, we are also, doing something this giving session, and that is basically our one-on-one free consultation calls to help you plan and implement your fundraising strategies. So to make the most out of this, can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. To make the most out of these one-on-one consultation calls with our skilled volunteers, please fill our show of interest form. It's completely free. We match make you with 2 of our volunteers, and we help you implement your fundraising strategy and help you brainstorm. So it's a great way to connect with the corporate volunteers and figure out what your strategies might look like. Can we move to the next slide? Additionally, we're hosting a masterclass series featuring industry veterans. This will be covering key fundraising avenues such as institutional fundraising, in individual giving. So I would urge all of you to follow our NGO community sessions on Luma to stay informed and stay updated on what's going on in the We Do Good community. We want to make sure that we're able to empower our NGO partners through these powerful and meaningful sessions where industry leaders come and share their actionable insights. So just make sure that you subscribe. Yeah. And next, we just want to make sure that you tell us how this session was for you. We want to curate a very smooth experience for our NGO community. So please feel free to scan the QR. We've also shared it in the chat. Please tell us how you felt about the session. Every kind of feedback is welcomed, and we definitely work more on it and curate a better experience. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Please, folks, just fill the feedback form so that it helps us curate a better experience. That's all. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to supporting, amplifying your impact on this giving session. And yeah, if you have any questions, any doubts, you can also feel free to write to us. We're available always. And thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to host all of you today. And thank you, Mihika, once again.